This is a presentation of SBE 15, New York City.
I did an RDS session for one of my TTTs, our Transmission Talk Tuesday webinars that we do on occasion. And the consensus was that if you don't have the PI code in place, if you're not running RDS, then you won't appear in analog on a hybrid radio either. So on a hybrid radio, if you don't have your RDS set up, you're going to disappear. You just don't exist anymore, not to that receiver. So, that's kind of a big deal. And if that's not incentive to get it right, I don't know what is. PS name, you can do whatever you want there. We use Cove FM because that's how everybody knows us, but whatever. We don't use any scrolling postscript at all. If we did, that would go in there. You can put a scrolling PS name. Here's the caveat. Car stereo will only display 8 characters of the PS field at a time. Now you can scroll by word or scroll by letter. You can scroll fast or you can scroll slow. Slow is really, really, really slow, so fast is only mildly slow. And if you scroll by letter, like I said before, S, W, E, it'll take you about 2 days to get that the name of that song out. So as a default, scrolling speed fast and scroll by word just is a general guideline there. Like I say, we don't use it on this particular preset. We do have our backup preset. We use it because that's what tells me I'm on my backup audio. My main audio failed. So I use my RDSs, and at a glance, I don't have to worry about I'll tell eventually because we're using USB audio, so I'll notice that I'm not playing a current spot or this one sounds different or something. But just having on the screen, seeing the PS field scrolling tells me that I'm on backup audio. So that's just another way we use it. Radio text, that's a 64 character field. It scrolls on some receivers and displays like my truck did all at once on others. Okay, and that's that PTY, that's that program type I was talking about. That's the one where if you've got it set to rock, some cars like my wife's will display some little default icon with rock on it. So it's useful in that regard just to fill up the screen. Okay, let's see, I overlapped a little. I'm skipping PTYN because we don't use that here at all. Music speech, you can set it, but again, that's not something the North American version of RBDS uses. Same traffic info, not a whole pile. Alternate frequencies are risky in this country. In Europe, they use it a lot because like a station will have about 5 different transmitters at different frequencies, and as you drive out of range of one, it looks at the alternate frequency list, sees another frequency there, hops to that one and carries on. Where it becomes a challenge in the US market, for whatever reason, if a car has an alternate frequency program and there's nothing there, that's where it stays. Some cars, not all cars. I think it was BMW was one of the bigger culprits in that regard. And someday, just for grins, I may program an alternate frequency into Cove and just take my wife's Mini for a drive and see what happens. But apparently it locks the radio up pretty good, and I don't know whether you reboot it, restart it, or just turn it off and turn it on again, which seems to be my solution for almost everything. So almost everything on the lower right corner of the screen, from music speech down, none of that is really required. It's optional, and most of it isn't really used that much here. The dynamic program type, well, again, depending on the receiver, that may make a difference on the display, but it's minimal. So if you've got the interest, here is every field used in RDS. And like I say, most of them aren't actually broadcast at all. There are a few things that did look at using some of the open data applications over the years. We're sending traffic data and various other things. In Europe, they use a lot more than we do. But here in North America, there's not a whole lot. It's just big wall of text. So the gotchas. Here are the big gotchas. These are the things that we deal with most in tech support. These are the things our support department gets calls about. Some versions of transmitter software will do it well, some won't. That's not just us, but I speak to what I know, and what I know is what's on my shirt. So, so yeah, sometimes the software version. I've had issues where we do a software update and totally break the RDS, and that usually will get pulled fast and get another update out the door quickly, like in a week or so. But if you downloaded that one and didn't happen to catch it, then this is why I always tell people I'm never number one when it comes to software updates. I want to be number 123 or something. I'll let a couple of hundred other people install it and see how it works. Um, the right info in the right places, again, that comes back to what I was talking about before. Running the artist and song title in an 8-character PS field typically gets pretty ugly. It makes more sense, especially as cars get a little more advanced, to put all the artist and song title stuff or any long scrolling messages, lawyer ads or whatever in the radio text field, and leave your just mix 109 or whatever, your 8-character positioner in the PS field. So just something to remember. By the way, in the PS field, that 8 characters, space counts as a character. Okay, so just something to remember. Um, Again, with us, we've got multiple presets in our transmitters, and you can have the RDS completely configured completely differently depending on your preset. We've had a lot of cases where somebody will switch presets for whatever reason and wonder why the RDS went away because, well, they never configured it on that preset. Or they'll make a change in the current settings and forget to activate that. So the first time there's a power failure, all the changes go away. So just little details like that. The big thing on connection, two big things. Either they won't have the port number assigned. You need to have the port number assigned. You can't just fire the RDS data at the transmitter IP address and expect it to get there. By the same token, if you're using an Innovonics 732 or what was the Automat? I forget the Automat RDS generator, doesn't matter. But you need to have in a lot of cases, you need a port number assigned. The biggest problem we run into is network connectivity. You think the RDS, it looks good leaving here as far as your automation system's concerned. Transmitter sitting there, you can ping the transmitter, but it's not getting there. And I say a lot of times that'll come down to the port either being blocked or reassigned somewhere down the chain. Somebody thought port forwarding would be a good idea, and the transmitter doesn't see anything coming in on the port it expects to. And the same with front end setup. I have run into, here's a caveat. So, especially with dynamic PostScript, PS or DPS are different commands, and they do different things. One's the 8-character static display, one's the scrolling display. If you're trying to put artist and song title and you're set to PS, it's just going to do nothing. It's going to hiccup and say, I got nothing. Okay. By the same token, I've run into a lot of situations where they'll have, instead of text equals, some RDS generators like to see RT equals. Well, if you send RT equals to one of our transmitters as an example, it's just going to sit there and go, I got nothing. If I send text equals to a 732, it's going to say, I got nothing. So you do have to pay attention to the command syntax too sometimes. All right, this just talks about what does static and what does dynamic out of our equipment. The VS is, I mean, that's old enough now. That's when we started doing it. Everything we do now is in version 5 something. So we handle everything. The only one is the original NV does not do dynamic PostScript. And again, if you're feeding external RDS into it anyway, like RDS over ASCII or IP, so the automation system's sending the data, it's totally irrelevant. It's only when you're putting like a 64-character display in the transmitter itself that it matters. So just something to pay attention to. All right, here, look at that. I think I already went through all of those. But like I say, something else important. When we first built the VX transmitters, and this is how I discovered that my truck wouldn't display something that didn't have the PI code set properly, or the PI code, because somebody who didn't know just the VX, the older transmitters, you just put in your 4-digit hex code for your station. And on the older transmitters, the guy that wrote the code just automatically prepended the 0x. 0x is the nation identifier, by the way. 0x is North America. It's 0A for Europe, and I don't know any of the rest. But so 0x is us. Well, on the VX, whoever wrote that code didn't realize that the 0x was embedded, so they didn't include it, which meant all you were sending was the 4 characters without the 0x in front. And my truck said, I got nothing. There's nothing here for me to decode. So that's more on the operator, but some RDS generators require you to put the 0x in there as well as the 4 characters for the station ID. So just make sure when you're programming your RDS generator, what and this I'm talking like Innovonics, the Automats, the Purus CZs, any external RDS generator. Okay, so figure that out on your own which one you want to do, and then the rest of it is, like I say, stuff we've already recovered, so you get a little recap of it. Okay, this one I left in because, like I said earlier, this is a change we run into a lot with our gear. When you go to make a change on a preset, you've got 2 options. If you go to the preset menu, it automatically, like the little picture in the back, comes up on current settings, what's on the air right now. If you make a change and hit apply, you get a little warning you're about to change the way it is on air right now. Do you want to do that? And you say yes. It will put an asterisk up in the title where it says preset 10 watts, and that asterisk is there. But the problem is you haven't saved anything. So the first power bump, you're going right back to where you were before. So if you're making that was intended to allow you the ability to make a temporary change to something. Maybe you want to do a temporary program change or a quick drop the power because you got a tower climber coming, something like that. If you want to make a permanent change, you need to load the preset that you want to change, make the change, save the preset, and then if you want to change it on air right now, when you see that little asterisk, just click the little drop down arrow and activate the changed preset. And that's all you need to do. Steve's nodding his head because he's been through this once or twice or 300 times before. So anyway, that's just, it's a side note, not really relevant to RDS, except it kind of is, because every transmitter, whether it's ours, whether it's Gates Air, whether it's a Rode, we all have our own way of doing the user interface. So make sure you get familiar with whatever it is you're running. All right, and that's, like I say, I'm putting the pictures up for me. But so ASCII over IP, if you're sending just regular, and that's what most people do now. On our newer boxes, we're slowly getting rid of the ability to run the serial data in for the RDS, because it just meant that you had to use a serial to IP converter at one end, send it as IP, and then use an IP to serial converter at the other end. And it's just easier to plug the network cable in and call it good. Again, port checker. Very first thing you want to do, you get everything connected, you think it's all golden, use a computer at the studio, ping the transmitter IP address, ;7005, ping the port number. If you get a reply, you're golden. If you don't get a reply, maybe not so much. By the same token, if you think you've got it configured right and it should be getting out there, there's a program called Port Peaker. You can find it online. They don't build it or support it anymore, but I did find it last week when I was doing this down a little further south of here. So I know that it's still kicking around. But Port Peaker is cool because it's just basically a terminal echo. So you put Port Peaker up at the transmitter site end, you give it the transmitter site IP address, ;7005 for the port number, and it will look at all the traffic on that port. So if you're sending RTS or RDS data as ASCII text, that ASCII text will appear at the transmitter end. And so if you're connected onto the same subnet as the transmitter and you see the data there, you should see it on the air. And like I say, that's the big thing that we find is that looks good leaving here, not arriving here. Somewhere in the network in between, it's getting lost. Something's being blocked or reconfigured, port forwarding, whatever. So that's one thing. Other thing, on our gear, we've run into this time and time again, especially on the low power stuff. They use ARM processors that get overwhelmed easily. And if you're sending the RDS data every half a second, which is the wide orbit default, then the transmitter is going to have a heart attack. It will leave the same song up for 15 minutes or half an hour. Maybe it'll put part of another song up in a little bit. Maybe it won't, but it's not going to work right. I know on my station, I've got a VS and a VX, and they're both happiest when I send the RDS data once every cart change. So I'll play a spot, send the RDS data, play the song, send the RDS data. So that's just the way we've got the automation system set up. On the latest wide orbit revision that I'm aware of, you can back it down as much as 20 seconds between sending the data. So that's usually your best way to go there. The downside to it is song could change in the middle of that 20 seconds. It might be 5 or 10 seconds before the title appears again. So just something to be aware of. That's the kind of thing that causes that. All right. Little plug on RDS2 because it may happen someday, possibly somewhere. I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over it. We don't support it at all at the moment, but that's basically what it does is adds more subcarriers with extra RDS data. The long-term goal is the ability to add album art and low bit rate data to the RDS stream. So could potentially be a good thing, but I mean, you're not going to get as much data as you can get on an HD channel anyway. So the benefit, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. All right, I said I had a whole pile of resources, and we did an RDS Basics ebook with Radio World a while ago, 2018. I did put a couple of PI code calculator links up there, and then a whole lot of mind-numbing. If you want to really find an easy way to get to sleep at night, read the NRSC standard on RDS. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's brilliant. There's a pile of information in there, but it's a tough slog for a lot, well, for me. Automat's RDS primer is pretty good. It's written in words that I can understand even after a beer or two. So yeah, there's a lot of resources out there. All right, before I slide into SNMP, any questions on RDS in general?
Now, how did you find that 30 degrees was the ideal phase?
Somebody that knows more than me told me. That's the short answer. One of the engineers said this works really good, but I have tried a couple of different iterations on my system, and that's the one that gets out the furthest on a drive test. Now, so at 88.7 with stereo pilot turned on, 30 degrees is my happy number. I haven't played with it beyond that except to do some just very rudimentary testing. But yeah, it's not cast in stone by any stretch. Offset from zero. Yes, Steve.
Yeah, I got a couple questions. I have a station that has a GV 3.5, and we're having.
Oh, now we're getting specific on tech support. Love it.
Well, I'm just starting with them. They have an old middleware called Radioactivity, and it went away, and they're kind of stuck in the middle. What middleware are out there besides TRE, or is that the only one, or what do you think of using middleware and or a middle box, or not at all and just going right to the Nautel?
Well, they run them for automation.
Right now, Radiologic.
So don't know anything about Radiologic, but I know both on we're using Rivendell and Playout 1 Pro, And we don't have any middleware at all. We run the data direct into the transmitter and use the transmitter RDS generator.
And that's with no middleware and no hardware.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm trying to push them into Playout One Pro, but it's a whole expense that they're not ready for.
Right. There are other options too. I mean, you can get some lower cost automation, but Playout One Pro just happened to be where we went with it. With us, the Canadian support guy for Playout One happens to be one of our hosts. So, you know, it was like free support built in.
Yeah, well, they're pretty inexpensive anyway.
Yeah.
For what I'm
But,
looking for. And I thought it was a real nice system but this Radiologic is a Mac-based thing, and they were using a middleware before because it also fed their website.
Now, does the Radiologic send the RDS data out as ASCII text?
I am actually not sure how it's working at this point because I'm still in discovery mode of this station. And I know they use something called radioactivity.fm.
Right.
And the guy who bought it decided that part of it was no longer part of his business or his project. So I have to figure out I got to figure it out from scratch, basically.
Yeah, so basically on something like that, you're going to want to figure out first if the automation system will send the RDS data out as ASCII text, then you're golden as long as you can get that ASCII text to the transmitter. If you can do ASCII over IP with it, it's even easier. If it sends it out over a serial port, then your best bet's to convert it to IP and then send it over a network connection.
And I'm sure I'll have more questions.
You know how to find
it. Jump in real quick here. First off, you go with Playout One Pro. There's enough flexibility in there that not that it takes the place of middleware, but you can put other messages up, like when a song isn't playing.
Right.
Where a lot of times what happens is the last song playing will remain through the next few elements.
Well, here, let me click back. I think I've got an example. I don't know.
Well,
there, yeah. So top right picture, that's my station when we're doing spoken word.
Yes.
We just put up our automatic, our big positioner.
Right. And the other thing, to answer your question, there is TRE Plus. Is that what you were talking about with TRE?
No, I just know that there's TRE out there. I put one in PLJ probably 30 years ago with Alan Hartle.
Yeah.
I know it's still out there through BE, and I know it's still what's around. But again, because they had middleware and because that's what they were doing, I didn't know if that's what still needed to be done,
right,
or if I can get away with not doing it.
And the GV does have
.com, and we're looking to go. There's no money here.
Right.
So if I can get away with not using a middleware or a middle piece of middle software or middle hardware, and I can make it work right into the GV, I would be happier.
Yeah, and the GV, as long as you can get the data to it, we'll be perfectly happy to kick it out.
Right now, they do have data to it, and they are getting it, but it seems to be it's once a song, but it's like 2 minutes into the song sometimes.
Yeah, so see how it's firing the data, because if it's, like I say, if it's sending it a lot, and I mean, the GV's got a single board computer running the show, so it's got a lot more power headroom or processor headroom than the VS or the VX. But yeah, see how it's sending the data. And I mean, it may, you got the manual for it, for the automation? Was that a yes?
Yes, I can get, I have to find the space bar. I can get it. I have to look it up. It's online, and it's a software that is, again, it's Mac based, and it's a system based off of iTunes.
No joy.
So yeah, exactly. And it's based out of the country.
So at some point you may have to tell them, look, we're going to have to bite the bullet and move into this millennium.
Well, the software is not bad for Playout One Pro for us in the non-com. It's really inexpensive. The hard part is getting the computers and the server.
Yep.
So TRE, if you don't do Playout One, and this could be part of your cost argument, Playout One will send out that data, and as Jeff showed, it's probably the cleanest I've seen. I was using that on my stations, Playout One direct to the RDS boxes, until I started with TRE Plus. TRE Plus is not like TRE, it's in the cloud. Um, it is subscription based, but it's by the year. It's not very expensive, but it gives you a lot of flexibility as
What's
far
not
as what
expensive?
it's not expensive, and I forget because I'll be honest with you, I'm still in trial mode after a year. But that's because I keep on feeding back to Max, things that he needs to do to update it and all that. But that there's also Q, which uses the Rapid platform from Xperi. Yeah, that would be the one that gives you pictures and images and all of that stuff that Jeff was talking about. That's more costly.
I think they'd be happy to do what Jeff has at the
Yeah.
core with Core FM, the frequency, and then the song.
Yeah.
And then
Well,
it shows up and it goes away. And again,
And get play out one.
the money, yeah, the money is so limited.
well, so the other option, if you're not afraid of Linux, would be to put Rivendell up for an automation system, which will also kick the data out just fine.
Yeah, the only problem with Rivendell is the station is an oldie station, and
Mhm.
everybody involved in it is basically an oldie, and they don't like one fader automation. They like to sit there and actually play radio from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's part of
Well,
the flavor of the DJs. They want to hit a different fader, 3, 4, 5, 6 faders, play different things. Back to, when I started 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And
so that's a lot more
getting them,
live assist
so
programming.
Play Out One can emulate that.
Yeah.
And I haven't found any others that are that inexpensive and that's complicated on the back end side that can do everything it can do and then emulate that stuff as well.
Right. And I mean, the reason we got rid of Rivendell, because when COVID hit, we went to 35 live or remote hosts, and Rivendell doesn't lend itself to importing music directly into the automation from a remote location nearly as easily.
Well, Play Out One seems to also let you take the whole program from your house and stream
Oh,
it
yeah.
right into
It
Play Out
does.
One
No,
and then
it's-
turn it
yeah.
around. And that's what all their remote hosts do. And there's no cost for
Well,
gear at somebody's house.
And
They
I
have
mean, for us,
little-
yeah, for us, we do it two ways. We do it that way. Some of them prefer to dump it into Dropbox, and Play Out One will import directly from the Dropbox folder too. So we have it configured that for this host, it just pulls out a Dropbox. For this one, they're expected to dump it in on their own. So
Yeah.
a lot more flexibility in that
I
regard
haven't
too.
touched Play Out One yet, but everything I've seen on their website and their videos for the price, it's unbeatable for the price. It's
Yeah,
like
and I
it's
mean,
like $1,000 a year.
and I say there are other options. That just happens to be the one I'm familiar with because it's what we use.
Yeah, and Steve, if you want to look at it, let me know. I'll get you in our systems. I've got 4 stations running it. And like Jeff said, the remote, what they call web VT, you can essentially go live from home or voice track from home. I've only
Where-
got one person in the studio.
Where's
from
your
one
closest
shot,
station
everybody
to
else is
Alpine, New
tracked.
Jersey?
I'm sorry?
Where's your closest station to Alpine, New Jersey?
Hudson Valley, Port Jervis. I could either get you in remotely or you can come
I
look
might
at
want
it.
to. I might want to do a visit at some point if you wouldn't
Yeah,
mind.
That's
And
fine.
then, when it gets nicer out, we don't have to.
That's fine, but what you're describing for a station that needs to be cost efficient, Play Out One will do so many things without needing a lot of extra add-ons. Actually, there are no real add-ons. Once you buy Pro, you get support, you get everything. But like the file copy, all that stuff to import from Dropbox, the backup that goes out to the cloud, all of that stuff is included. And the RDS is pretty good too. And it also hits the website as well. It can do that as well.
Yeah, I like that too. It actually listed about 7 different places it can send data to at one time, which is like then you can set up everything individually, and then if one breaks, where it broke.
Right.
It's not like sending it in my old days, in the PLJ days, we said TRE and it sent it everywhere. And then you didn't know which part of TRE broke and which part didn't send it. And obviously 30 years later, people have fixed a lot of that stuff.
Right.
And it seems that Play Out One really fixed it.
Well, and that's like if you go to covefm.com and hit the now playing button, I mean, the data and the music are all coming directly from our automation through our stream too. So, yep. Anyway, all
Thank
right.
you.
Hey, you're welcome. Anything else while I got it, or while we're on pause? Moving ahead. So SNMP, Simple Network Management Protocol, and it is simple when you understand it. When you don't understand it, it's anything but. So that's why I went with the title, Putting the Simple Back In. The funny thing, so SNMP is getting close to 40 years old as a technology. The IT industry has been trying to kill it for the better part of 20 years now. Because although it works, there are other things, RTS, and I'm forgetting the other one, but there are other things that work so much better or could work better. So we need to do it because it's what everybody's asking for, but is it the best way to do remote control? Probably not. It's the best of what we got right now. The cool thing about it is that it is pretty easy to break down. I mean, you've got managers and agents, each agent, and you may have one agent controlling a bunch of devices if you've got the ability, like a ArcTouch Plus. You can load half a dozen MIB files into that thing, and we'll talk about those in a bit. But the MIB file is what tells it where to look on each device that it's monitoring for this or that, what readings it wants, what is looking at, and what the parameters are. And we'll get into that in a couple of seconds. So it really lends itself well to monitoring multiple sites. Like if you've got a manager at a central location, a NOC, or well, and I'll give you the top end example. K-Love monitors every one of their stations from one NOC in Franklin, Tennessee. Well, they've got a backup in Sacramento still while they're finishing their move, but they can monitor every single station and look at every parameter and every piece of equipment in every station from these 12. And I've been in their NOC center. It's pretty astounding. 4 people controlling everything they do. So, that's the kind of power you can have with it. Now, on a smaller scale, pick a GV20 as an example. A GV20, we're monitoring 2,000 different parameters continuously. And trying to remote control 2,000 parameters with a conventional, signed systems and IP8, you'd have to stack a lot of them together. Even with a Gentner, you might have to go pretty far. But with SNMP, it's one Cat5 cable. And all you do is tell it what you want to look at, and it tells you what you're seeing on that particular line. So what do the pieces do? The managers or pull the agents, or set is basically telling it turn on, turn off, turn up, turn down. Okay, so set tells it what to do, and a pull asks for what's the status. Okay, agents, they just get the information they're the middleware, if you will, and then the browser is what you look at it on. Now, the browsers, there's umpteen different ones, but before you get to that, I mentioned MIBs, and there's a pile of acronyms, and again, I'm not going to read all this stuff. I assume you all know how to read. But here's an example with a VS300. So the VS300, like there, you got the controller reset, the local remote on, off. These are the commands. So if I want to hit it with a reset, I will send it that OID, that object identifier, and I will set it to 1. And 1 fires the reset. Easy breezy. Now, the OID is the really cool thing because it is a fixed structure. So OID, the object identifier, this is the breakdown. And I mean, the first 4 digits will be the same all the time forever. Okay, so ISO is the standards organization.org for organization, okay. DoD for Department of Defense, because they were the ones behind this 40 odd years ago. And then internet is how we do pretty much everything. And internet, whether it's a private network or whatever, that it was all internet then. Beyond this, it can go a little further and it starts to change a little, but for the most part, .4.1 will not change. And then it does. So every manufacturer that builds anything that uses SNMP has a unique 5-character code, similar to a U.S. military cage code or the DUNS number that we use now. But so this happens to be ours, 28142. So every MIB file, every OID, you're going to see everything the same to the end of 28142. Now, I left one blank because I didn't know what it was at the time. Well, for us, one is FM and 0 is AM. We have others depending on the product, but anyway, so that is the upper level of the manufacturers, how they define it. So for us, one is we used it for transmitter type. We use the next characters. 300 is for VS 300. I think we use 3000. I don't remember what we're using. It might be 310 for the VX. But again, and then like 256 could be an exciter. 329 could be forward power. So just all kinds of, you can break it right down to the very bottom level. And actually, if we flip back here, there, so the VS controller reset, there's the 28412, the 300 for the VS. So 256 is the controller, and 7 is the alarm reset function. Okay, so again, if you've got the MIB file, it just lists all of these operating identifiers, object identifiers. So here's the entire list of SNMP commands. That's it. That's all you got. Get means get this OID. You say, here's an OID. Tell me what it's returning for a value. Might be a digital value, on or off, 0 or 1. Might be a number representing an analog value like power, temperature, current, things like that. Okay. Get response, same. It's the same basic concept. The next two are dangerous. Get next, if you put that in a line of code, so you do this, get next, do this, get next, and just loop it, you've basically created a walk command. Walk starts at the beginning of the MIB file and walks through every single object identifier, every OID. So like I said, on a GV transmitter, we could be monitoring over 2,000 things. You're going to walk through all 2,000 of those things. That's the catch. If you have a transmitter with an ARM processor, like our NV lights, our low power NX, our VS, our VX, you will shut that thing down. It won't stop making RF. It'll still run, but at that point, the user interface is going to be totally responsive because the processor's just sitting there trying to figure out how to spit all this data back to you. So, avoid using those if you're manually building an SNMP manager. On most, I don't think the ARC Plus, I don't think they even give you the option for a walk command. And we prefer you don't. Get, set, and trap are really all you need. Set is, like I said, you say set, give an OID number, and then give the value you want set. So if you're hitting a power increase, it might be 1 to increase, 0 to decrease. It might be setting a specific value for the power, depending on the transmitter. Okay, and then trap is alarms. If you've got traps configured, then when an alarm fires in the transmitter, it will send a trap to your SNMP manager, and the SNMP manager will do whatever it's configured to do. It might turn your whole screen red and say, hey, something stupid's happening. But that's up to how you configure it. Now, there are not a lot of things that you need to know to set it up. That's the cool thing. It is pretty basic. The port numbers, we make ours assignable, so if you don't like to use 161 for your SNMP, you can change it. Usually just leave it on the defaults, the better solution. My IT security course will tell you changing ports is useless anyway, because anybody with Shodan's going to find it regardless. So, that's not a lot to it. Absolutely do set unique passwords for the read and write communities. Don't use the defaults, which may be read or write or password and password to. They could be whatever the manufacturer set, but change them to something unique. And then if you want traps enabled, great. If you do want traps enabled, you have to give the trap a path. Now in this one, I've just got a loopback set because we're not doing it anywhere. So that's it. But in that case, if you're doing traps, you're telling the equipment where to send the alarm. See, so that's the basic difference. On a get or a request, that is the manager querying the equipment and then retrieving whatever the equipment returned for an answer. On a trap, that's the equipment reaching out to the manager. So it's just the direction of data flow is the only difference. Okay, but in this case, that's the only time you'd need to know the auto or the SNMP manager's IP address. And again, the default for traps is port 162. If you want to change it, you can. There's no value to it. All right. Now, if you are configuring traps, then you got to tell it what gives you an alarm. Again, we're monitoring a lot of stuff. You can set it all if you want to. If you want to drive the whoever's monitoring it absolutely insane, go for it, whatever. But as a rule, there are also in our gear, we've got summary alarms. And that's what I use. I use the AC summary, I use the power summary, and I use the SWR summary. So if I've got any reflected power condition at all out of the 7 or 8 we monitor, I'll get an alarm. If I've got any AC power alarm, I'll get an alarm. If I've got anything related to power modules failing, I'll get an alarm. Or if and that one will usually, if I've got a lot of ice built up and that puts me in a very low forward power condition, that will also fire the power summary alarm. The one thing I don't on our systems, the one thing I don't return an alarm for is program audio loss. And I do that for a reason. We got 35 volunteers with various levels of training. We fire audio loss alarms on a daily basis just because somebody forgot to click the button to activate the next cart or whatever. You know, so the prime example, when we were moving the studio, we had, at that time, we were running Audio Arts DA1 or Audio Arts boards. I forget the model number, but the beige ones. And anyway, so we had these old Audio Art boards that we'd handed down. One was in the back of my truck. One was at the old studio. So at the new studio, we had a laptop running Rivendell, and we had this giant 800-pound mahogany frame McCurdy audio mixing board to pot the mic. It was a lot of overkill to pot the mic and the automation up and down. And of course, it couldn't fire carts. It couldn't do anything. So what you had to do, pot the mic up at the end of the song, pot the music down, say your piece, pot the mic down, hit the space bar to fire the next track, pot the audio source up, and away you go. Well, we were talking earlier about, I think Steve was talking about some people like to live in the 30s and 40 years ago. Our bluegrass guy on Saturday morning, Wilfred was 80-something years old, and he didn't like this newfangled stuff. So what happened was he's doing his show. Again, I'm moving from one studio to the other with the console in the back of my truck and a bunch of other stuff, listening to the station, and I hear, we're going to play a song. I don't know what effing song it's going to be. He didn't censor it like I am for the recording, but, you know, you can imagine. And he goes, all right. Well, you guys can listen to it and figure it out yourselves. And then you hear a bunch of paper shuffling, and he's cussing in the background about this damn thing and this, and I'm sitting there, and it's like, push the button, Wilfred, push the button. Well, 30 or 40 seconds later, he pushed the button. He still left his mic potted up, so it, you know, it was perfect. But that's the kind of thing that you can, if you wish, configure an audio loss alarm. So yeah, it will do just about anything you want it to do. You know, you can make it as powerful or as limited as you want. PRTG is one I like. It's a SNMP manager. It's primarily designed, and most SNMP managers, except for like the Automat Relio and the Burkhardt Plus Touch, most of them are designed for IP, for computer use. So PRTG is no exception. But the free version, you can download it from their website, and it will let you monitor up to 100 channels. So 100 different OIDs. Now, those 100 different OIDs don't have to be off one MIB, off one device. I could have 5 transmitters and monitor 20 things on each. I could have 20 transmitters and monitor 5 things on each. So if you're used to working with a Sign Systems 8-channel remote, sky's the limit with this thing, and it's free. It is as powerful as you want it to be. You can customize, you can do custom layouts and build fancy displays for it. It's a lot of work, but once you get it done, it's good forever. Or you can roll your own. Like I say, with the Automat and the Burke, you can buy a system that's totally done. You know, what do they say? Everything comes down to time or money. This is free, but it takes a lot of time. A custom built system, roll your own, is going to take a lot of money, but very little time. So, you know, how you balance that's totally up to you. All right, so what do you do? Well, the first thing you do is load your MIB file, and this is the iReasoning browser, or no, that's Automat Script Easy, which is another software SNMP manager. That's the one they use in their Relio. Oh, Davicom also handles SNMP pretty natively because they've got our MIBs loaded in. So yeah, that's just worth knowing. So you load the MIB files. Where do you get the MIBs? Well, from us, you get them right off our FTP site. We make that stuff. We try to make it easily accessible. Here's the catch. If you go to that SNMP MIBs folder and you can't find the one for your piece of gear, we probably did an update and broke something and pulled it off so you didn't download it and screw up the works. Okay, so that will happen on occasion, but for the most part, it's all there. So again, there are here's a list of 4 over and above the Script Easy and the pre-built ones. iReasoning is just a browser. With iReasoning, you load up the MIB file and you can scroll through the OIDs and you can look at all the various OIDs. Okay, you can manually go in and tell it to do this or that, but you don't have any custom interfaces. It just scrolls and looks. Laureate is another one that's designed for internet use, but it's not bad. And then I say PRTG, I like. A lot of people tell me they like Zabax, and I've not played with that one yet at all. That comes down to our IT security policies. They don't let me download software off the internet willy-nilly like I used to be able to. There are reasons for that. I told somebody I'm the reason we have IT security policies. But anyway, so you can pick one and play with it, you know, and like I say, it's like everything else, time versus money. It's an inverse relationship. The more time you spend, the less money you'll have to. But either or. All right, so this is basically it. I mean, you import the MIB file, you tell it what you want to monitor or manually enter it. And I mean, the cool thing about SNMP, and PRTG is a prime example. So if I monitor forward power, well, the one I monitor a lot on mine is the controller heatsink temperature, because that's typically at my station going to be about 10 degrees Celsius above ambient. So I just monitor that constantly. And it's cool because with PRTG, I can graph it. So I've got a trend plot going along telling me exactly how the temperature's varied. Okay. You can make it as simple as something like this. Everything's there. This is what's good. This is what's bad. You know, I mean, that's an extremely simplified variation. Downside is I got PRTG installed on my new computer when IT gave me the new computer. A bunch of years ago, I've worn the N, the A, and the S off it already, but I'm not sure what I'm typing with that. Anyway, when they gave it to me, they accidentally gave me the network, the computer network monitoring version, not the raw SNMP version, which is great because every morning now I can tell you when everybody in the Nautel facility logs in, which is absolutely not useful to me, but hey, it's a, you know, the example of the power it gets, and it doesn't matter where in the world I am, I get that email every morning. So the gotchas, like I said, have the ports there. And I specify 161 and 162 here, but again, in our gear, you can change it. In some, you cannot. So just, again, pay attention and be careful. Some require more, yeah, again, time versus money discussion. All right, so that is kind of it in a nutshell. Again, SNMP, it's one of those, if you download, and the iReasoning SNMP Manager, I think you can get that on offline. If you don't, actually, I'll tell you what, I'm going to be hanging around with Bud tomorrow for a bit, and I believe, I'll double check, but I believe I've got 3 or 4 USB sticks in my laptop case with these browsers installed on them. So I'll hand them over to Bud, and if anybody wants one to play with, just reach out to him. And that way you don't have to go trying to find me. But so that's it. SA in a nutshell. If you got any questions, let me know. I will click through to the man. Oh, one plug for webinars. We didn't do any in 2024 because with the territory shifts, I didn't have time. We're getting back into it this year. The TTT sessions, for anybody that's not aware, on random Tuesdays, and we always publicize it at least 2 weeks in advance, but on whatever random Tuesday, we'll do, we call it a TTT, Transmission Talk Tuesday. And I try to pick somebody that knows more than me, which is not a big challenge. On any topic, there's somebody that knows more than me. And we'll just sit down for an hour and talk about it over it's not Zoom, it's GoToWebinar, but same deal. It's a remote hosted. And like we're doing one next Tuesday, which is kind of cool. I get home Saturday, so that gives me Monday to build it and Tuesday to do it. But I've got Burley Stapley from Blanchard River Broadcasting in Columbus, Ohio. We're going to do a recap of a session we did at the Midwest Broadcast and Multimedia Conference last fall on soldering and toolkit contents. So, you know, what are the kind of things you should have in your toolkit? What are some things you didn't know you should have in your toolkit? Like I'll show off my vice grip crescent wrench. So, and Keith's laughing, but it's a real thing, and it's so cool. It's a crescent wrench with a vice grip handle that will lock the jaws. So no more knuckle buster with it.
I had to ask you, is that for real? Where'd you get it?
So somebody had posted it somewhere in I don't remember whether it was Ars Technica or one of the magazines I read, and I saw it and I go, that's got to be a joke. So I went to where you always go when you want to see if something's available in the real world, Amazon. And they said, yeah, no, we got this. And I said, holy smokes. So I ordered one just for grins. Well, when they send it to you, they send it to you with a 9/16 nut just so you can play with it. And it's like, because, yeah.
We're checking it out.
Well, because, you know, a crescent wrench is a knuckle buster. You set it, you move it a few times, and the jaws work loose, and then it slips and you yell. Yeah. Well, so this one, once you've set it, you squeeze the vice grip handles and it locks the jaws in position. So you can set them so they're a hair loose and squeeze them so they just fit perfectly, or you can squeeze them so they lock onto that thing and you can dangle it upside down, they won't fall off. So it was just a cool thing. But anyway, so that's that one. In February, I think the 11th, I got Adam Robinson from DJB. And we're talking about hardening the audio chain. So I had him do one for the Canadian. By the way, a little plug. So like you guys, we put our programs on our website, but we trim all the boring meeting content and only put the technical portion, the presentation portion. So if you go to SBE100.ca, and under the resources link, you'll find, and remember, our chapter's only a year old, so we don't have a lot of stuff up there yet. But we do have half a dozen, and it's growing on a regular basis. I see they put up the studio build review from this past Tuesday's meeting while I was, where was I? I forget. Either on an airplane. Oh, no, I was presenting to Baltimore at the time. Anyway, so yeah, the webinars link, all our TTTs get hosted under that tab as well. And I mean, we've talked about RDS, we've talked SNMP. I've had David layer in talking about hybrid radio and dashboards. Basically, if something catches my interest, we do a session on it. So there you go. All right. Anything else? Questions, comments, criticisms, or concerns?
No, we appreciate it, Jeff. Nice work tonight. That was informative.
My pleasure. I try. And look, I think I managed to fit it all roughly into an hour-ish, give or take.
Yeah, you had about, we had a little bit of our meeting and adventure ahead of time, but
I don't, and I'm terrible. I don't run a stopwatch. So there have been times that somebody, Ellis Terry used to say, I never met a clock I liked. And I've done some hour-long presentations where I took the whole 90 minutes to do it. So anyway,
Jeff, is there a copy of your slide set available?
absolutely, Mike. Yep. I can, let's see. I don't have an easy way to throw it up on the screen, but jwelton@nautel.com. If you send me an email, I'll be happy to send it out.
Great, thanks very much.
My pleasure.
You know, Jeff, it's, I don't know how you have time to sell because you're spending so much time on education and getting involved in SBE and that. So, you know, thank you and thank you.
Oh,
For
by the way,
finding-
and I know David, I'm sure, has made this plug before. He's disappeared from the screen, but don't forget the RF 101 and MOIP tracks at NAB if you're going.
Yes.
Pick one, pick your favorite one. I, of course, want you to pick the RF 101 because that's mine. But but we've got a few different presenters this year. The content hasn't changed much, but anytime you get a different presenter, they put it up in a different way. So that's cool. And it's like, you know, David and Fred, their program is cool because the IP world changes so much and so fast that year over year, it's like almost totally different content. But the ability to make little RF into big RF, that's not changed a whole lot in the past 20 years. And I told somebody, really, somebody's like, well, I'm kind of an audio engineer. And I said, the only difference between audio and RF is the size of the spark. All right.
Well, the other thing, Jeff, is, you know, you're talking about NAB. I mean, if anybody can attend that, it is worth it. You don't need to, you could just get an exhibitor badge from like BGS, Broadcasters General Store, as an example, from Nautel. Go to the NUG, which is really, that's Sunday morning, if I remember right.
We start registration at 8 o'clock with a continental breakfast. At 9 o'clock, we start sessions. We stop at 1 o'clock and feed you lunch. So you will miss the first 3 or 4 hours of the show floor. If you stay for the AUI or HD radio sessions in the afternoon, and we haven't put the program together yet, just except in very general terms. So it'll be a surprise. It always is. But yeah, and I mean, they let me ramble on for a little bit too.
Well, my point being for those, I mean, early in my career, I'm like, oh, I can't go to NAB. And then I went and I'm like, holy cow, this is amazing. And every year I go, you build up to it. And it's like, oh man, I've got so much to do before I go. And you know, I'm only there for less than a week. Jeff is out there for a couple of weeks, but there is so much knowledge just on the floor. But the NUG is extremely valuable. There are a number of other educational opportunities, such as the SBE Ennis that you were talking about too.
So Ennis, so public radio folks, PREC is Thursday, Friday. The SBE sessions are Friday, Saturday, so there is some overlap there. Our NUG is on Sunday, and it is no charge. I mean, you don't, if you're in Vegas, more than welcome to come along. And it used to be the Nautel Users Group was what NUG stood for, and now it's the NUG Radio Technology Forum because we've gone so far away. We do have a little bit of product update, but the guys are given 15 minutes to do product update. Other than that, it's what's going on in the industry. We've had Jeff and Donna Detweiler doing HD radio sessions. Paul McLean usually comes in and does a bunch of stuff. So yeah, we try to keep it fairly, I mean, other than the fact that you're going to be in a room with 20 people wearing Nautel logos, we try to keep it pretty nonpartisan with respect to the content. They give me an hour and change to do tips and tricks and whatever happens to cross my mind. So yeah, we have a lot of fun with it. Last year we had seating for 300 and had to bring 50 more chairs in.
I remember that.
Our record was 2019. We hit 467 attendees. So didn't quite break 500, although we did a virtual NUG the first year of COVID and had 1,100 online for that. So biggest webinar I've ever done. That was kind of fun. But,
all right, if there's Anybody else have any other questions, comments, concerns?
You forgot criticisms. Be fair now.
Criticisms, yeah, I got it. Part of my issue on Zoom is, I was trying to transition stuff and I end up, my camera is on a mini Mac. And now I've got to switch from using Windows all day over to here, and it's not Teams, which is what I'm so used to using. So,
Same. Yep.
I'll get that squared away for our next meeting. Some good stuff. No, I think our June meeting, our barbecue is going to be pretty slick. That's all I'm going to say right now, because there's a number of things to work out for it that I'm working with National on, but it's going to be a good one. I can tell you that right now. I've got a good feeling, and Jeff, you may be involved in that one as well, my friend.
Oh, cool.
So
yeah, depending on when it is in June, I will add the caveat that I build a 3-day Media Technology Institute with the Wisconsin broadcasters. I got roped into helping with that about 4 or 5 years ago. So that one is always a commitment, but otherwise my June is usually pretty wide open. So
yeah, some more work to do on that, but we'll have meetings through there. And again, please email me if there's any, any
I knew I
topic.
had.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I got half a dozen of them. I'll have to double check and make sure that I don't have any viruses on them, but I think mostly they're all exactly what I said they were.
Okay. So for the group, hey, thank you for attending. Just a reminder, if you could be a mentor, to help a mentee, and there are 1 or 2 people on here now, one in particular that I would consider a bit of a mentor that I learned a lot from. Is he still here? He dropped off. But this is how we all learn. And I learned a lot today. This is some things I didn't know. You think you know everything, but
Well, and that's what I said. The big deal with any topic, I mean, I've made an entire career out of finding people smarter than me to talk about stuff with.
yeah. And tomorrow, I think you'll be challenged, and I know you are going to learn something tomorrow.
Who,
I
me?
can tell
I
you
thought,
that.
well, I learn something every time I walk out the door.
Yeah, and so you get to your experience tomorrow. You'll see some real grounding.
Oh, by the way, when you anybody who gets this USB stick, and like I said, I have half a dozen of them, they will also get a 3 presentations on this stick that include my grounding and site safety presentations. So
Okay.
bonus content.
Very cool.
Oh, very nice.
All right. Hey, so final call, because it's the end of my broadcast day and I'm starting to hit some skywave here. I'm sure Jeff has had a long day as well, I know.
This wasn't terrible. I left Hartford at 7 o'clock this morning. I was in Boston Back Bay by 9:30, 10 o'clock, and on a train to here by 11. So,
You covered a lot of ground, my friend.
oh, my yesterday was brutal. I woke up in DC at 3 o'clock and went to bed in Hartford at 11 p.m. So it was a broadcast engineer day that day.
Sure. Well, you got to see some tower sites and some transmitters.
Oh yeah.
Not all
No.
yours, but you get to see that. So
I have never ever complained about seeing a transmitter site, and this was all TV sites with Mike Fitzpatrick, and that's cool
Yeah.
because I don't get to play with TV much.
yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Thanks for joining us. Please remember to subscribe to SBE 15 New York City.